have been. I arrived. I left Paris last Tuesday. So for less than 10 days, just over 1 week. I went to Venezuela. Then we had the American Congress in Colombia, in Cartagena, where it was the contribution of most of the presidents of the Latin America and Central America FIA clubs. And we had a lot of presentation. It was a contribution of the Inter-American Development Bank. And from Colombia we went to Nicaragua. Then we went to El Salvador, Panama, Costa Rica, Guatemala, and here we are. We are. I was told that the meeting was at 5:30, but we arrived quite late.
Okay.
There was some delay at the airport, but still we are on time 5:30, but from Guatemala time.
So many work to do here. Mucho trabajo por hacer. Eso no sé qué es en español, ¿no? Mucho trabajo por hacer en América en cuestión de la seguridad.
The American Congress was mainly on mobility aspects. And of course, amongst the most important programs is Action for Road Safety.
Tenemos las acciones en cuanto a la seguridad.
And you are well aware that in this part of the world, it's quite a lot of work to do.
Se tiene que hacer mucho trabajo al respecto.
Saying that the problems between Panama,
A los problemas que hay entre Panamá,
El Salvador,
El Salvador
or Mexico are different.
y en México, todos esos problemas son distintos.
And the country that I was mentioning are countries between 3 to 15 million people. Here you have 110 million people.
Y hay algunos que tienen mejor 10
So
millones de personas.
the problems
Entonces,
are definitely different.
son
But
diferentes aspectos.
in all over the world, in 2010, you had 1.3 million people who died on the
3
roads.
millones de personas.
50 million people were injured.
15 millones de personas.
90% of those figures
El 90%
are coming
de las
from
personas,
developing
esas
countries.
cifras, son de los países en desarrollo.
And those countries in Latin America,
Y estos
in
países en Latinoamérica,
Central America, are
Centroamérica,
amongst developing countries.
son los
We've been. I arrived. I left Paris last Tuesday. So for less than 10 days, just over 1 week. I went to Venezuela. Then we had the American Congress in Colombia, in Cartagena, where it was the contribution of
en Colombia y Cartagena, donde estuve contribuyendo.
most of the presidents of the Latin America and Central America FIA clubs. And we had a lot of presentation. It was a contribution of the Inter-American Development Bank. And from Colombia we went to Nicaragua. Then we went to El Salvador, Panama, Costa Rica, Guatemala, and here we are. We are. I was told that the meeting was at 5:30, but we arrived quite late.
Okay.
There was some delay at the airport, but still we are on time 5:30, but from Guatemala time.
Tengo el tiempo, ¿no? Con el tiempo de Guatemala.
So many work to do here. Mucho trabajo por hacer. Eso no sé qué es en español, ¿no? Mucho trabajo por hacer en América en cuestión de la seguridad.
The American Congress was mainly on mobility aspects. And of course, amongst the most important programs is Action for Road Safety.
Tenemos las acciones en cuanto a la seguridad.
And you are well aware that in this part of the world,
Y estamos muy conscientes que
it's quite a lot of work to do.
se tiene que hacer mucho trabajo al respecto.
saying that the problems
Al decir esto, me
between
refiero
Panama,
a los problemas que hay entre Panamá,
El Salvador,
El Salvador
or Mexico are different.
y en México. Todos esos problemas son distintos.
And the country that I was mentioning are countries between 3
Y entre
to 15
los
million
países a lo mejor tienen de
people.
15 a 50 millones
Here
de
you have
personas.
110 million people.
Y hay algunos que tienen a lo mejor 10
So
millones de personas.
the problems
Entonces,
are definitely different.
son
But
diferentes aspectos.
in all over the world, in 2010, you had 1.3 million people who died on the
3
roads,
millones de personas
50 million people
murieron,
were injured.
15 millones de personas
90% of those figures
el 90%
are
de
coming
las
from
personas,
developing
esas
countries.
cifras son de los países en desarrollo.
And those countries in Latin America,
Y estos
in
países en Latinoamérica,
Central America, are
Centroamérica,
amongst developing countries.
son los países que están en
And
desarrollo.
if you take the developed countries,
Entonces, ahora, si
over
tomamos
the
en
last
cuenta
10
estos
years,
países en desarrollo, durante
the
los
trend
últimos
of
10
the
años,
accidents has
la
been divided by two.
tendencia de estos accidentes se ha
If you
dividido
take
en
the
dos
developing
ramas.
countries,
Si tomamos a los
over the last 10 years,
países en
the
desarrollo
trend of
en
the
los últimos
accidents
10 años,
have been
las tendencias
multiplied.
han sido multiplicadas. Se
I
han
know that
multiplicado.
in Mexico, and
Sé que en México,
it's part of the meeting we will
forma
have,
parte de las conferencias que
there
vamos a
is
estar llevando a cabo, las reuniones,
a strong desire
y
to
hay
improve the
un gran
situation.
interés para mejorar esta situación.
It doesn't mean that in other countries there is not a strong desire,
Hay ese deseo
but
de mejorar las
probably
cosas. Tal vez en
that
otros
in
países
Mexico
no quiere decir que no lo exista. Tal vez en
the
México
country can be more structured.
se puede estructurar mejor el
I was
país.
told that in the next
Me han dicho
months
que en
there
los
is a
próximos
decision from the
meses
government
va a haber una decisión, una toma de
to
decisiones de parte del
improve
gobierno para
40,000
mejorar
kilometers of roads.
400 kilómetros,
También.
400,000, perdón, kilómetros,
40,000.
40,000.
40,000, perdón.
But still, you know, the elementary aspects of road
Las
safety
partes fundamentales
are
sobre
not
la
respected.
seguridad
For the bikes,
para
helmet,
las motocicletas,
for
para usar
the
casco,
car, the reflex to put your
para,
safety belt,
para tener
you
el
and the
cinturón de
people
seguridad, para
around you
cubrirse uno y asegurarse
respect
uno y a los
the
alrededor.
limitations,
En tener,
not drink,
no tomar
while you
mientras se
drive.
maneja, por supuesto.
education
Hay
at
que
school,
educarlo. Eso es bueno.
implementation of new
La
technologies on cars
implementación de las nuevas tecnologías
in Europe,
en Europa,
in America,
en América,
in Canada,
Canadá,
in Australia. From
Australia.
2012, ESC will be
2012.
compulsory. ESC is Electronic Stability Control. A 16% improvement.
El sistema de control de tracción va a ser, creo que entiendo todos, va a ser mandatorio a partir del 2012 en Europa y en Australia.
Okay.
So that's where we are.
Definitivamente creo que México, Colombia, Venezuela,
Just a minute, let him finish, and then you translate.
México, Colombia, Venezuela y Brasil tienen ya una buena representación en el automovilismo internacional, llamémosle incluso hasta en categorías como Fórmula 1. Pero ¿de qué forma la FIA puede contribuir más para que estos países y otros de América tengan un crecimiento mayor?
He's asking that Venezuela, Mexico, and Colombia and Brazil, they have a strong representation in the motorsport around the world. And he's asking, how is the FIA going to help these other countries that you visit to improve the participation of these countries in motorsport?
No, I mean, I don't think that what you say is correct.
No creo que lo que ve o lo percibe sea correcto.
I mean, it is true that in Venezuela it's one
cierto
driver,
que
Pastor
Venezuela
Maldonado,
tiene ciertos
who is driving in Formula 1.
que está manejando para la Fórmula 1.
And I don't see Colombia
No
having bigger
Colombia
programs
con los
than
programas
other countries in Latin
u
or
otros
Central
países
America.
con lo que pasa en Latinoamérica y Centroamérica.
And in Mexico,
En México,
it's a bit like road safety. Bigger
por
country,
seguridad, ser un
more
país
possibilities,
que
more
tenga más
history
posibilidades, más
in
historia.
motor racing. I
En
remember when I was a
cuanto a
teenager,
las carreras de
one of my
motocicleta,
heroes was
uno de mis héroes,
Hermanos Rodriguez.
Puede ser más Rodríguez.
So, I mean, it means that since 50 years,
Eso quiere decir
things
que
happening. It has been
desde hace
Formula
50
One
años está
in
sucediendo
Mexico. I
Fórmula 1.
remember
En México,
being here around years 90 for
alrededor de los 90,
endurance racing
y estuve corriendo.
in Mexico.
En
So
México.
probably it has been one global economic crisis
Entonces había
in the
una
world
crisis
who had
económica
slowed down quite a lot
por
of
lo cual
development.
bajó todo para que no existiera el desarrollo.
But what is encouraging all the countries where I've been, there is a strong interest for
Es que hay un
motorsport.
gran interés por la
Motorsport is not only Formula One.
Este tipo de deporte no solo es
Motorsport
Fórmula 1.
starts from go-kart,
Estos van desde los go-karts,
national rallying,
de los rallies
touring car
nacionales,
championship,
algunos
GT championship,
la GT,
and we have 200 countries in the world about, and only 20 Grand Prix of Formula One.
solo 20 de ellos participan en Fórmula 1.
So there is space for doing
Entonces hay
a lot
espacio
of other programs, but for me it's
para hacer
very
muchos de
important
este programa, pero para mí lo más importante tal
to
vez
give the possibility
es
of
dar
young
esta
drivers
posibilidad a
to
los
train.
jóvenes.
I mean, when I was in Panama with my
Cuando
colleagues
estaba en Panamá con mis
a
colegas,
few days ago,
hace
I mean, we
unos días,
saw young boys
vimos jóvenes
practicing in go-kart,
que estaban practicando go-karts.
and for me, this kind of education is very good because it allows young drivers to be then good drivers on the road,
Ser buenos pilotos en la
and
carretera.
the synergy between
Y la
sport
sinergia entre los
and
deportes
mobility
y la
is
movilidad
something which is essential.
es esencial.
Mr. Jean Todt, how does the FIA is going to implement the campaign about the road safety? I mean, are you planning to make a campaign in all media? What kind of campaign is going to do the FIA in Mexico?
So you know the FIA, which is a motoring international global body, is not
Como este socio internacional.
with the must to finance and to advertise. If you take IOC, Olympic Committee, and if you take FIFA,
Puede ser la contribución del ¿cuál puede ser la contribución de la presencia del señor Todt, presidente de FIA, junto con todos nosotros en esta visita, recorriendo una buena parte de América? Bueno, es de alguna manera unirnos a nosotros, saber que trabajamos bajo una misma sombrilla. La contribución es que cuando nos entendamos que podemos todos trabajar bajo una misma reglamentación, entonces nuestros automovilismos pueden ir surgiendo, porque siendo, excepto ustedes, quizás países muy pequeñitos y con poco desarrollo, las competencias que podamos hacer en Nicaragua, El Salvador, Panamá, Guatemala, todos en conjunto hacemos que crezca. Y la presencia del señor Todt junto con nosotros pues fortalece esos lazos que deben existir entre las asociaciones deportivas de la región.
but I mean, you know, I want to add, for me it's very important that President of the FIA to visit the countries and to see what our clubs are doing and who they are, because it's not by meeting our members once, maximum twice a year, except the committee members, that I could really share program and discussion with them. So the best way is really to go and to visit the countries. And last year I've been visiting 55 countries. This year I will visit 45 countries. Next year another 40. So it means that I will have make a round short.
Like the Papa, you're going to make a trip like the Papa.
I'm not.
No, no.
I have a wife. You know? And then it's for me one good opportunity to support them in their own countries, because sometimes they are with limited means. But if the national government knows exactly what they do, with whom they are dealing at the international level, they may get more support. And when, for example, we were in Nicaragua, we met the President of the Republic, and after the meeting he decided that he would invest for a circuit, which he would never have done if I would not have been there. So definitely it's kind of lobbying, to support the club. And I mean, what is important is then to check and to see, okay, having visited this country, what did it give to the club? And hopefully it gives some support. The most viewed sport in the world, number one is Olympic Games every 4 years. Summer Olympic Games, World Cup every 4 years, and Formula One every year. So still, you must always pay attention because things can change very quickly. But at the moment we have a strong championship with a lot of good teams involved. For us it is very important to take into account when we speak about new regulations, about the evolution of the society, about the evolution of the environment. That's why we will have introduction of a new regulation from 2014 with a V6 1.6 direct injection, energy recovery, electric device, and new chassis regulations. So, I mean, it's all that very positive.
It's possible to imagine in 20 years Formula One with electrical cars or hydrogen cars?
Yeah.
The environment, the crisis of...
electric car.
No, please don't say that.
At the moment we are talking about speculation. The world is changing very quickly. So before thinking about having electric Formula One championship, we are working on other single-seater series with electric cars from 2013, 14, but not at the Formula One level. At the moment, with one electric category, you could not do more than 20-25 minutes. So I'm sure that in the next 10 years, you will not be able to make a 2 hours race with one electric car. Hydrogen is another energy which will be completely different, because hydrogen you will be able with a road car to drive without recharging your car 700 kilometers, 800 kilometers, and our technical people will address that and make some proposals. But don't think that within the next 10 years there will be some other changes, because introducing a new engine in 2014, I mean, it will last minimum 7-8 years, so we will be already after 2020.
Mr. Todt, do you think we can see...
I mean, could you present yourself?
Alfredo Dominguez Muro from Banco Deportivo. Yes.
From?
Okay. Banco Deportivo is for the Central Sport program.
Thank you. Do you think we can see in the prototypes as we used to see them 20 years ago, with these big machines and big competitive between or among the big brands that you used to work, the prototypes?
But you have prototypes.
I mean, this big championship that it used to rivalize against Formula One and prototypes, almost at the same, like 20 years ago.
But I mean, we have exactly the same now, and next year we will have exactly the same than 20 years ago. It will be a Formula One World Championship. It will be an Endurance FIA World Championship. And if you take this year Le Mans, you have had a big fight with two manufacturers, and you have had Porsche, who has announced that they will come back, I think, in 2014. So we will have more manufacturers, particularly with the new arrival of Endurance FIA World Championship. So I'm convinced that we will have Formula One, which is what it is, and Endurance will be amongst the strong FIA World Championship, which will be similar not to what it was 20 years ago, because 20 years ago it was a big difference between Formula One and Endurance Championship. But let's hopefully 40 or 50 years ago.
Okay, thank you.
How fast do I drive?
Yeah, how fast do you drive?
I mean, I must say, I respect the rules completely, and I do. You know, sometimes it's like a switch. I love driving, I love cars, but probably older you get, more responsible you become. So I feel it would be responsible for me and in my position not to be an example. And my wife is a global road safety ambassador. Myself, I'm claiming all over the place for discipline, respecting the rules. So I respect the rules, saying that very often I don't drive, I'm driven, and I read while my chauffeur is driving. But if I drive, as I said, which I have a passion, I respect the rules. I'd say the challenge is to save, over the next 10 years, 5 million lives and 50 million injured people, which would be a fantastic result. You know, you must be well aware that every day on the road in the world you have 3,500 people who die, and you have 140,000 people who are injured. So, I mean, it's something which is terrible for the society, because you can imagine the cost, you can imagine the consequences for the families, and if you foresee that this cost will be used to improve the roads, to do a lot of things in favor of strong improvement. So, I mean, as I said, you know, in the life you must start to be responsible. So it starts from the governments, who must take very strong decisions to apply for drastic rules to be supported. And you know, for me it is not acceptable to see road car accidents at the level of malaria, at the level of cancer. You know, because malaria, I mean, you have to work to study, to research, to try to improve. Road car accident is mainly education, discipline, road infrastructure.